Welcome everybody for today's game. It is a show match between the Greasy Goblins and Quantiy, and I'm so excited to be here tonight. Two teams that we've never seen before, but I'm not alone. It is not just me. I'm gonna be joined by Mr. Fukuro. How are you doing, man?
I am absolutely hyped to be here. Two new teams, no more Black Manta show matches. Although the last one was pretty sick, I gotta admit. I'm so hyped to see more teams that this split will have to offer. And I think with Quantiy and Greasy Goblins, we have some two really stacked lineups.
I would definitely agree. It's a split five to me, and we talked about this even before we started the stream. Split five to both of us is gonna be so exciting. It's gonna be such a good time because so many new teams are gonna be joining in, and so much talent that is yet to be seen that is gonna be brought to the light with split number five. But we are already very swiftly into draft, so let's not dawdle on that too much. Yone and Syndra already being taken away, and you can already see some target bans going through. Yone is a champion that you generally tend to ban, even only if the enemy team does end up playing it. Syndra, more of a ban that is more general, is more meta focused, and on the other side, Galio, Lissandra, and Hecarim is gonna be the three bans for today, and Azir first pick on the side of Quantify.
I think that's not too bad. I think there's like picks that should be at more high priority that have also not been banned by either side. But that being said, though, I think Azir is a nice pick to have. And now we see Greasy Goblins picking up the Ashe. I think that's a good pick, and they just like pair it up with a Nautilus. I think we will see like two very different approaches to the game right here. Uh, but only like more of the draft will tell uh, if that really holds true.
Yeah, definitely. And I hope that we see two different approaches because I think it spices up the game a lot more, and I think it as a whole gives us so much more interesting gameplay. It's gonna be the Milio Slam on B2. A very good pick into the Nautilus. You can deny a lot of sort of his long sustained CC death charge. Unfortunately, being a knockup means that you cannot melee ult it. You can't melee ult knockup, so gonna be interested to see how that's gonna play out in the bot lane. Might be a Caitlyn lock in here, and I am a big fan of that with the Milio into Dash. It is gonna be an oppressive as hell of a bot lane coming up from Quantify.
That being said, though, I think it's still like heavily dependent, at least like in the bot lane, on whether or not Caitlyn actually gets to control a lane. If there's like, for example, a Greasy Goblin's jungler around, it's not really easy to play around that with just Caitlyn Milio. So the jungle picks on both teams will be really deciding on how the bot lane matchup will tend to be.
Definitely, and I think it was a good point that you highlighted. Jungle is gonna be a key role today. When it comes to this bot lane matchup, Caitlyn Milio is a lane that wants to get pressure. You want to push in, want to get control of your wave very early on into the game. Caitlyn is a champion that likes to bully your enemy laner. You want to be able to use that range in your lane matchup, regardless of the champion you're playing against. Ashe is one of those champions where it is harder to do that into because if you get slowed, then it might be a little bit difficult to run away from a Ashe Nautilus. There's still a lot of CC there until you hit that level 6 on the Milio. No denial of CC. Yes, you can football kick back the Nautilus right before he hits his hook. You can sort of deny the ability. The CC does still go through, but you won't be reaching the AD carry. So if you can time it right on the side of Quantify, if you can sort of pull that off, if Nodori can protect his AD carry well enough, it should be a good time for Quantify's bot lane. But this is some late top lane picks, which should mean that I'm expecting some bruisery top laner to come out.
Yeah, I'm thinking like both teams want to play around a carry top in a way because there's so many like tank picks and lane neutralizing picks already out of the picture. And Greasy Goblins locks Nocturne on 4. And I don't know if that's a good idea, really.
Yeah, I think The Nocturne is, I feel, a little bit weird here, going with the Talia. Generally, you tend to see Nocturne paired up with something like an Ari, which has great pick potential. It is great when you can dodge a charm, but when you can't see the charm coming, it is a lot harder to do. We're gonna see the Renekton on that B for a good blind top laner, and some answers to the Renekton you can sort of go for a range matchup. Last time in pro play we did end up seeing the Quinn counter. I don't believe Greasy Goblins play the Quinn, but it is something
The
you might be
Singed is
opting
being
yourself
hovered.
into. Sitch being hovered. I hope that doesn't lock in. I hope that's all lock in.
I think we just might see it. There's instead Cassadin being hovered. That's an
That's a
even
bait,
that has to be.
surely.
We Shen is a decent answer. It's indicating weak side top and just like the full focus on the bot side. And I think with the picks that Greasy Goblins made, they really undermined my point of showing this bot lane is playable even into a Caitlyn Milio lane. Uh, and well, there is quite a lot of like pressure on that Ashe because if she falls behind ever in this game, there's not really a good carry for Greasy Goblins, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It is gonna rely heavily on the pick potential Greasy Goblins has. Again, the same point stance that I made with the Arya stance with the Ashe. Yes, you are great being able to dodge out of an enchanted crystal arrow, but if you get hit with the paranoia, if you get hit by pure darkness and your screen is pitch black, and suddenly you have an arrow coming at you, you really cannot dodge it. I am expecting a cleanse to come out of the Caitlyn here just to make sure that doesn't happen. But for the other members, as long as it's not the Milio that's getting hit, you should be able to generally Milio ultimate your way out of that. Which does mean that on the side of Quantify, it is gonna have to be coordination. It is gonna have to be teamwork to make sure that nobody gets picked off by that Nocturne Ashe combo before the fight even begins.
Yeah. Also, another thing I would add is the poke factor because, well, on the side of Greasy Goblins, there really is just the Talia that has like good poke potential, while Caitlyn, Azir are great champions, and they have the support from the Milio to increase their range as well. So Quantify definitely has a range advantage, which is a huge factor in team fights a lot of the time. Uh, so it is Greasy Goblins that are kind of forced to engage onto them, and that's not like an easy way to play when you're still facing a Wukong and a Renekton in the front line.
Getting that early chip damage could mean a lot, like you said. Azir has very high range. A champion that's quite high in prio at the moment, at least when it comes to pro play. A champion that is quite good as well. We tend to see it getting played a lot. So I am good to see that Quantify has picked themselves up. They do have the confidence on it to even be able to B1 it, which I think is a good showing coming out of them. On the side of Greasy Goblins, Nocturne Shen combo is a combo for the ages. You hit up the Paranoia, you hit up the Shen ultimate, and suddenly, instead of just the Nocturne in your face, you also have the Shen in your face. But
Yeah,
with that all being said, Fukuro, who do you think overall won this draft?
I think both teams have interesting ideas, and it's like we already like kind of analyzed very early on. The teams have very different ideas. Uh, But overall, I personally think Quantify has the easier and more comfortable draft. So I'll go with them.
I think I definitely agree. My issue on the side of Greasy Goblins is what you stated earlier. It is the single carry threat. It's the Ashe. If this Ashe falls behind whatsoever, it is going to be a distinct lack of damage on the side of the Goblins. Now, yes, Nocturne, with the recent build change that he has had, it is no longer, tends to at least, be no longer the lethality Nocturne. It tends to be nowadays more so the Stride Breaker, more so the Bruiser Nocturne can offer up a lot more sustained damage than the Lethality Nocturne can, but it's still into a Renekton, into a Wukong, into an Azir. All these carries on the side of Quantiy can just sort of beat down the Nocturne if they don't get a quick and early pick into these team fights on the side of Greasy Goblins.
Yeah, I think the Nocturne is also a key pick for Greasy Goblins. So very similar to the Ash, if Nocturne is not on the game, it's going to be really hard for Greasy Goblins to play the game from ahead, which they need to do because I definitely think they will have problems with the scaling when facing a Caitlyn and a Nazir, both being like really, really strong late game carries. And to your point of Nocturne's build path, I think Bruiser is like the most preferred path right now. But I think this game has a strong argument to maybe go for the burst build and going full assassin and just hopefully taking out the carries before they can pop off in the fights.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There is a lot of squishy targets to go for on the side of Quantify. The ideal situation for I feel like Greasy Goblins would be if you can pick away the Milio very early on into these fights. I am expecting when it comes to the jungle matchup a lot of attention towards this bot lane. We've already talked about the importance of Ashe for Greasy Goblins, but on the other side, on the side of Quantify, it is a Caitlyn Milio lane. We talked about this already, but this is a lane that's gonna pressure. This is a lane that's gonna push. If you
Yeah.
can't alleviate that pressure of on the Wukong, on the side of Quantify, it is gonna be a very scary time for Quantify's bot lane to sort of get anything done to use the range advantage they have drafted for themselves if they don't get played around in the early game.
Yeah, definitely. And to kind of add on to that, just like independent lanes as well are going to make like the difference, especially early on. Not just the bot lane. I think the mid lane matchup can also be really telling, and it's gonna be really interesting if the Talia counter pick to Azir will pay off for Greasy Goblins, because I think if Greasy Goblins gets a lead out of lanes, they'll be fine. But they didn't draft necessarily like the strongest lanes. They drafted very like good jungle to lane uh, teamwork tools in a way.
Yeah, definitely. And we should be moments away from getting into the game, guys, so don't you worry. But yeah, I think this mid lane matchup, like you said, as well, gonna be important. Talia should, I feel like, be able to get the push in the early game into the Azir, just with how much wave clear she does have, especially with the sort of, I don't know if I would call it rework Talia necessarily, but with the update they did to her Q, where now you can just sort of toss the word to ground and it's a lot more AoE damage than it used to be, which just gives you so much more of that wave clear. And with this mid lane matchup, with let's say with the mid jungle 2v2, how do you sort of expect it to go? And which team would you prefer in that mid jungle 2v2?
If we're just looking at mid jungle 2v2, I definitely think Greasy Goblins is my choice. I think Wukong is overall a great jungler and has like great ganking, but realistically speaking, it's just for lanes and especially like the mid lane, very satisfying to just have that point and click ult gank with Nocturne. That being said, though, mid lane also is like the shortest lane in the Nazir, is rather safe. But I think overall I would still rather have Nocturne Talia over Wukong Azir.
I definitely agree. People tend to underestimate the burst damage that Talia can offer in those sort of shorter or even longer fights. Once you get Nocturne Fear into a Talia flip back into a bunch of rocks, it's gonna be a lot of burst damage coming out from the side of the Greasy Goblins. So I definitely agree. I do think I favor them in the 2v2 as well, which I think Quantify is a good enough and established enough of a team to make that note themselves. So it'll be interesting to see, I feel like, how the Wukong is going to be able to play around that and play around the sort of Nocturne Talia pressure he's going to feel early on into the game. And with this Shen as well, once you hit level 6 on that Shen, any fight you take on the side of Quantiy
Look at this invade early
immediately
on. I
becomes
think the
scary.
Caitlyn will be hit with that. If there's going to be
Mhm.
flashes invested, Caitlyn needs to be really careful. She will spot them out right now. Ward is being placed and the hook connects. And the CC, this should be enough. That's the first blood. And it goes over to Barack Ogama. That is absolutely huge for them, really. That's huge.
Early combat power coming out here 1 minute into the game, and already we are seeing them push their lead. Already we are seeing Greasy Goblins get and pick up that first blood for themselves. And it did end up going to the Talia, which it does mean that's gonna be an early tier coming out, and that should be a big help for
Yeah,
when it comes to the mana department.
definitely. Now we see both junglers pathing towards the bot side, which I think is a good choice. I think you want to weak side both champions on the top side and just kind of leave them be. But just looking at like the early stuff for Greasy Goblins with the early kill, this is quite simply also what is like needed for them to win this game. I think they have to invest risks like this invade, and there's another hook connecting. There's already trading happening, and the exhaust is down from the Milio so early on, and Greasy Goblin's already starting off strong.
Some early exhaust, which means once this Nocturne hits his way down to this bot lane, if they end up in that 3v3 situation in a minute or so, it means that there's going to be no exhaust, no flash
And
for the
we
Caitlyn. It's a
see
kill.
another kill, and there's more happening. And this should be the third kill on the board for Greasy Goblins already. God of Snacks gets one, and another one goes over to God of Hacks. And we did not really see how this situation started, but I do believe that the push in for the Caitlyn Milio turned out rather unfavorable, as they just got engaged on, and with the Summoner Diff, that was already enough to lose them the fight.
The hooks are hitting. It is the matching username diff down in the bot lane, already making that difference, picking up that early recurve bow for the Ashe, which means that he's gonna have so much more control when it comes to this push with that extra attack speed, which is exactly not what you want to see if you are the Quantiy bot lane early on into this game. But very well played from the side of Greasy Goblins to pick themselves up that early lead.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what Greasy Goblins wants, and they are showing quite dominantly already that they have the winning lanes that they wanted and that their game plan is basically of that early aggression. And so far it's working out. Let's see if they can hold the pace and, yeah, get more plays off, get a bigger lead, and snowball that into a win. Or if Quantiy is going to catch a breath, take a break, and come back stronger from those early mistakes.
And that's the thing, when you tend to get these early leads, and hold the thought as Boda is looking here. Hex Flash coming through. Gonna be a hook landing as well. Nidori is gonna be in trouble. Flash does get expended, and it is gonna be a flashless bot lane, which is a scary thing when you're playing against the Nautilus Nocturne.
The vision control is also not in their favor. This is rather bad. Their lane state is more or less neutral, but if there's Nocturne ever hovering around, they will never have an idea. Right now, they are hopefully not thinking he's around. Maybe they know he backed. And look at the trade on the top lane. Cybercrux did get a lot of damage done on Heroes Phobos, but now Jerry K coming in on the gank is not enough to actually take down the Shen, but like Shen gets a big chunk of damage, but overall it's still fine.
Should be, and so far this top lane is very 50-50. Once these level 6s start hitting, I would expect Cyber to start looking around the map. I would expect Cyber to sort of See
And
what he
another hook
can
coming in on the
do.
bot lane. There's a huge hit onto Prophet, and he gets out, but his health is halved already. And God of Hacks and God of Snacks are showing off so far.
This is starting to turn into a very scary Nautilus as we have a gank on the top lane here. Taunt comes through. Should just be a dead Nocturne, a dead Renekton, sorry, on our screens in a moment.
Definitely.
We'll
Yeah,
see who
that's the
picks up the kill.
first kill
As
for Jungle Buddha. Really happy on that one, I assume. And with the pickaxe being secured early, I am assuming it's going to be the booster builds.
should be, yeah, and it's gonna be, I feel like a TP expended as well with the wave state in the top lane from Phobos, which means that it is gonna be a TP advantage for the side of the Greasy Goblins. At least for the moment, we'll see once this base goes off from Cyber, we'll see what he ends up doing with the TP as we see Bada moving on over to that bot side, and already there's a Drake start on the side of Quantiy.
Yeah, but Jerry K has to be careful. He will be spotted out here, has to flash over the wall, and now the Drake is definitely going over to the Greasy Goblins. And I'm just more than happy to see that Greasy Goblins are pulling off so many things early on. Drake resetting there a little. Uh, but that's exactly what they need for this game to turn out in their way. And though I did predict against them, I'm very happy to see them perform so well so far.
I am a little bit confused on the side of Quantify as to why that Drake was started. There was sort of no prio on any lane to be doing the Drake right there, which is why you saw exactly what happened. Greasy Goblins were just able to sort of waltz up on in there, even got Jerry K's flash in the process, and just took over the dragon. It's gonna be an early Hextech Drake for the side of Greasy Goblins, and so far, this early game is playing out exactly the way they wanted. Even Cyber, being level 6 now, is gonna be able to join these fights whenever he sees fit, and having that TP up, actually not having that TP up, had to expend it in that earlier play, in that earlier base, but look at the HP on Phobos. This Renekton is just not having a good time into the Shen.
Yeah, especially now with a lot of armor being stacked on the Shen should have a decent time in the matchup. Sure, now that Renekton has level 6 or level 7 even, the matchup kind of flips in favor of the Renekton because the ult will make a difference. That being said though, Shen doesn't care. He has his ult available, he has Nocturne's ult available, he can at a moment's notice just decide to not want to be in the lane. And now look at the Nocturnal coming in, and I think this is already enough. There's another play being forced on the bot side. The rest of Quantify is on the top side doing the Herald, and so Prophet dies another time. He's not getting the save bot lane treatment that he hoped for. Instead, he's getting bullied from Greasy Goblins, and there's just a Herald to show for in return.
Just Daryl picked up a little bit of nerves coming out from Quantify. I feel like Prophet ended up netting the wrong way, but might be a dive coming through for
Yeah,
Quantify side.
I think so. That this should be a dive. Jerry deciding to not cut off the path, looking for the play now though, and it's going to be taking up a lot of damage. And with the turret shots coming in, that's going to be Renekton falling. But there's a 1-for-1. But the Milio picks up the kill. This is not worth it at all, I believe. And well, Shen is going to lose a bit of wave, which is still very good. But there has been such a big investment from the side of Quantify for this play.
It's a huge investment coming out, and it ended up with Prophet dead on that bot lane. And like you said, Milio out of everyone there picks up the kill. It is less than an ideal situation coming out from the side of Quantify. And taking a look at the gold as well, it is only a 400 lead down in the bot lane and almost a 1000 lead in the mid lane. Jungle and top lane are even for the moment, and support as well is gonna be in the lead when it comes to the Greasy Goblin side. So it is mainly just this bot lane that has been the difference maker, has been the gold buffer for the side of Greasy Goblins. And if D Jungle ends up making some more plays down there, I don't see it getting any better for the side of Quantiy, sorry, with Stand United being available as well on that Shen. It's it's gonna be a rough time.
Definitely, I 100% agree with you. And the lead org is like a good 3,000 gold almost for the side of Greasy Goblins. And now look at the play on the jungle. Jerry K is caught out, the
Oh.
crystal arrow hits, and this. Oh, the Nautilus hitting the wall. It's still enough to take out Jerry K, but like that one would have hurt if Jerry K got out of that one.
Definitely. A good snipe coming out from Snacks there to be able to start that play off, to be able to pick up that kill. And this is what we were talking about with the squad of the Greasy Goblins. If they get ahead in the early game, it is going to be a relentless assault. It is just the jungle walking into the Wukong and just saying, "This is no longer your jungle." Find him on his own red buff and just absolutely get smacked up in his own jungle, which can never feel good confidence wise when you're getting done in that easily on your own side, let alone what's happening over on the other side when it comes to this jungle matchup. And this top lane matchup as well, not going like Quantiy would
Yeah.
have wanted.
But look at the play on bot lane. Jerry K looking for a play, invested Flash and Cyclone, gets the knockoff finally onto the Ashe, and the Ashe is being knocked forward. God of Snacks is still living though, and there's going to be a lot of kills in return for Greasy Goblins, and God of Snacks survives. Prophet the last one alive on the bot lane play here, and this is 4 kills for Greasy Goblins and not a single one falling. This play turned absolutely into disastrous catastrophe for the side of Quantiy.
It's just such an overcommitment coming out from Quantiy. You can see the item advantage on the side of the Goblins. There's the Kraken Slayer, there's the Ludens, there's the Stand United, ends up coming out from the Shen. Yes, you lose what, 2 plates? But you'll always take those. You get a dragon as well. It's gonna be a mountain soul alongside that. So you definitely are looking to play these Drakes, definitely are looking to pick that one up. And it all started with Quantiy being the one who engaged. And the next thing you know, there's a Shen down there, there's a Talia down there, and it's such an uneven fight for the side of the Greasy Goblins. So definitely this is the time where teams might get scary to sort of keep going and lose their lead. But these are the type of moments where you need to press on. You need to not take your foot off of that gas pedal and just keep on rolling, as you see a little bit of a snipe attempt coming out from Stacks, but ends up going wide, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, now let's look at the side of Quantiy right now. They are facing a comp that is basically able to engage them in every 2 minutes. And they are really behind. What are they supposed to do?
It's a good question. And it's not a question I have an answer for, in all honesty. Might be the top lane gank
Could
that
be
gets
Jerry
them
K looking
through.
for the top lane play against the Shen, but there's also Jungle Buddha looking for the counter gank. The Shen is going to fall, but maybe Jungle Buddha can find a play in return. Doesn't really deal a lot of damage to Phobos, and yeah, ultimately it's a 1-for-0 trade, and Quantiy is more than happy with this.
Quantiy does take those. It is a shining light in what seems like such a dark future for Quantiy in this game. Bot lane tower ends up falling, first tower of the game, just more gold into the pocket of the Ashe. Already has that
The hook
Kraken
attempt
Slayer
from
in
Nautilus
his
is
inventory.
absolutely scary. Every time he presses the Q button, I'm like
Oh no.
crying out of nervousness, and this hook connects, and that's more than enough to force Flash Cleanse from Caitlyn. There is a TP coming in from the side of Quantiy. Phobos is looking for more, but there's also the Shen counterplay, and God of Fax is not getting out of this one. He's dropping very low, but suddenly this whole fight turns into a 4v4, and God of Snacks is dealing a lot of damage, picks up the first kill on the Caitlyn. There's more happening. There's more engaging. God of Fax is right in their face, is going to fall. Jerry K is the next one to fall though, and that's a 2-for-1 for Greasy Goblins, and they are going to take more with the bot lane turrets.
it just happened again. It's the story of these ultimates and all this mobility being used on the side of the goblins. Gold lead now 6,000 for the red side, and again, it ends up being Quantiy who engages, ends up being Quantiy who has the first say in this fight. And 2 seconds later, even if you blink for a second, there's four members on the
Yeah,
side of Greasy Goblins there. You got the Shen ultimate, you got the Nocturne, and suddenly you're just finding yourself in such an uneven fight in such an uneven circumstance that it's such a hard game for Quantify to play when they're this far behind.
yeah, definitely. And I mean, I just want to highlight how well Jungle Buddha is using that Nocturne to counter Jerry K's every move. It is absolutely brutal. And another fight is breaking out. TP being invested from Cyberperks, or no, from Barak Ogama, and that's 2 kills already for Greasy Goblins. And Quantify is completely forced out of the river, and that's a free Herald on top.
And at this point, it feels like a desperation play. It feels like Quantify are just saying, look, this game isn't going well for us. It's not gonna get any better the later the game goes on. So let's just try and see what we can do. Let's just see what fights we can pick up. Maybe we get lucky. Maybe we pick up a kill. Maybe we can turn this game around. And so far, it's just not working. They're being smacked up by the wallets on the side of Greasy Goblins. And with this dragon spawning up as well, this soul point is gonna say a lot, I feel like, about how the next 5 minutes is gonna go, depending on which team is gonna pick up the strike.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, let's look at this game right now. This is such a hopeless state. The Ash R does not connect there, but let's look at this for Quantify. There is but only one way of them getting back into this game, and this is
Oh,
basically the other team throwing. And we go into the tech break as someone disconnected.
maybe that's
But
the way
that's,
they get through. Just DDoS snacks.
yeah, maybe. Maybe that's the play. I was gonna suggest that Greasy Goblins just need to throw the game for Quantify to win it, but playing it 4-5 is also a possibility of losing this.
That's maybe someone, they hired someone to pull the plug, getting a little bit desperate. Who knows? But I'm sure, like you said, it is some technical difficulties on the side of the goblins, and I'm sure Snacks will be with us making his return momentarily. Just some internet issues, I assume. And with the dragon spawning up in 13 seconds, do you see any way, any stretch or realm of reality that outside of a miracle steal from Jerry K, it would be Quantified to walk away with the strike?
No, I think even the steal would be like a really big hero play because it gives Quantify a bit more time to scale up and farm. Because if they're fighting against a soul and they're not at 5 items yet, but only 3, I think it won't be enough for them to be like, yeah, well, we farmed up, we scaled, we can win this now. This is just not the reality they're facing. They're facing uh, greasy goblins that are absolutely loaded and that are currently working toward their mountain soul with no real contest.
Yeah, that's the big thing as Snacks ends up making his eventual return, but that's the big thing when it comes to this. A little bit of a spectator bug. Don't you worry, guys. This happens when you pause the game. The game takes a little bit to catch up, so it freezes for the moment. But the big thing is, even if it's not the soul, or sorry, yeah, even if it's not the mountain soul that's on the cards, the Elder Dragon is the big thing because currently we are looking at a very early Elder. I feel like if both of these dragons do get picked up by the side of Greasy Goblins, and I feel like that's the scary part when it comes to Quantify. That is what they are most scared of. They're most scared of this Elder spawning, but if this Elder goes to the way of a squad that's already ahead, but not even that, a squad that has an Ash, a squad that has a Nocturne, all this pick potential, and you add all that burst damage in, it's gonna be such a hard time to play the game because you're gonna be so much more scared of the paranoia that you already are.
Yeah, and I mean, The paranoia in general is already like even without like any Drake really a killer tool that Jungle Buddha has used uh, quite literally to perfection so far in this game, because it is not only a great ganking tool but also a great counter ganking tool, and we've seen this repeatedly happening, like mostly to Jerry K looking for plays, and then suddenly the plays turning out into full on like 4-on-4 fights.
Yeah, definitely. And that's like we already said earlier on into the draft. That is the strength of the comp on the side of Greasy Goblins. They have that Shen, they have that Nocturne to just be able to, in an instant, turn the fight to their side. The Dragon is going to be started up here, and there's so many members on the side of Quantiy in that top side that it is going to be free pickings for the side of the Goblins, which means we are looking at a potentially about 27, 28-minute Elder Drake, give or take, if they do end up getting it by the
Oh, and the
minute as the
paranoia being
paranoia.
used, that's a free kill. And the Nocturne wasn't even part of that kill, sadly. So I think we definitely see Greasy Goblins now breaking open the map as much as they can because they want to accelerate this. They don't want to give any possible like comeback chances. And there's a big hook connecting from the Nautilus. There's Phobos trying to defend the turret, but he has to be careful. There's God of Hex still finding a hook beautifully. Prophet has to get out of this play, and God of Hex is actually very low HP, is going to be engaged on by Phobos, but Phobos falls to the hands of Jungle Buddha. And surprisingly, this play turns out really, really well for the side of Greasy Goblins, with a miracle 1 HP Nautilus getting out and no casualties on their side.
It's just going from bad to worse on the side of Quantify. Thought they could pick up at least one kill out of that play. It ends up being the Renekton that falls. God of Hacks, literally 1 HP, ends up living with a smidge left on his health bar, and it it's just looking like desperation plays coming out of Quantify. 9,000 gold lead out of Greasy Goblins. Baron spawning now as well, and I don't honestly expect this Baron to live long on this map. They should be picked up by Greasy Goblins, I think, more sooner than later. The main thing is, at the moment, there is no Shen ultimate available. So I
Yeah,
think that's the main thing that they're gonna be waiting for before they make any sort of a play.
I mean, they still have the TP, which is really nice, but honestly, will always prefer the Shen ultimate over that. Which is also why I think Shen is like a really great addition to like the side lanes of a team that is very capable of playing around the side lanes with the Talia, with the Nocturne. And maybe, just maybe, Greasy Goblin saw something that we pre-game did not see.
Definitely. And you just look at the items as well. It is two items pretty much across the board on everybody that matters. Yes, Cyber is still sitting on one item, but he is so tanky regardless. He's pretty much just there as a meat shield. He's pretty much just there to give Stand United to his teammates, and we see the Baron start up, and they might try to make a play on the bot side on the Shen, but this Baron is most certainly gone for the side of Quantify.
Yeah, this is melting rather quickly, and there's no counterplay to this. And with this Baron, we're looking at Greasy Goblins that could potentially be looking for like at least the inhibs, maybe more.
Definitely, and so what I would love to see from the side of Greasy Goblins is gonna be a 1-3-1. This is sort of what they can play towards, and it's the strength of what they have. You send the Shen onto the lane on his own, and with him having the Stand United and that TP up, like you mentioned earlier, can join these fights whenever he wants. Granted, the Azure turret is gonna make things a little bit harder for him than he would like, but nonetheless should be able to get that push in, should be able to crack through that Azure tower eventually, which means that there might be a catch on the top lane.
There is a play happening. Is it enough though? I think it is, and that's not even close. Phobos falling a fifth time this game already, and there's not really anything he could do there. He's just looking for resources, but he just can't get them really.
Yeah, there is nowhere this Renekton can go, no place he can stand. Maybe out, like, unless he goes, just stays AFK in Fountain, but outside of that, there is no safety to be had against the absolute death ball that is this Greasy Goblin squad. And so far, we're seeing exactly what I want to see. We're seeing the three people in a lane on their own. We're seeing the Talia in one lane with that TP up, and we're seeing the Shen in one lane with, again, that TP up, having that the ultimate as well on his side. And this is exactly how I wanted to see the side of Greasy Goblins use the Embarrass buff. So it is good to see that their macro is on point as well. Even when you are this ahead, when you're this ahead, you tend to you sort of get lazy with it because you can get away with a lot more than you would be if it was an even game or if you were behind. So it is good to see that they are still sticking to it, still sticking to their comp and still doing what they need to do. But it is gonna be a mountain soul, I feel like, within this next 30 seconds for the side
Yeah,
of Greasy Goblins. And if you thought the Shen was tanky already, he just became so much harder to kill.
yeah. That does not only just go for like the Shen. Look at the Ashe. She has built Trinity Force, which is like an extra 200 HP, I believe. And Jarek looking for the steal but not getting it. The flash over, just not the hero play we were hoping for. Which brings me right back to the point. This Ashe is really tanky, just of her natural tankiness. And now Cyberskirt is going to fall, I believe. Prophet picks up the kill, but in return we see the mid lane turret falling, and there is so much happening that I think the game will be over very soon. There's two inhibs open now, and this is rather bad for Quantify.
And
For
yeah, I
both of them,
definitely
actually.
agree. I wouldn't expect this game to last much longer. And while yes, it is a good pickup from the side of Quantify. They get a kill into their pocket. It is not one of the members you wanted to see. There's three shutdowns currently on the side of Greasy Goblins, and they managed to kill the one person that doesn't have the shutdown. So while yes, it is some gold into the pocket of the Quantify squad, it is not the gold, it is not the pick they were looking for. And with that Zero Tower falling as well, there's I don't see a way for Quantify to come back into this game. I don't see a way for them to make a comeback because it is a 13 or 13 to 12,000 gold lead for the side of Greasy Goblins.
There is always the chance at a random Elder steal happening, and I think by the time Elder is up, Jerry will have a splash again, so he could go for another attempt. That being said, though, side one being used, interesting choice there. Um, I don't think we'll even get to the Elder Drake. If things turn out right for Greasy Goblins, they find like a pick or two, they should be able to close out this game.
Yeah, I think
Jerry K is
interesting.
well. Let's move on. Jungle Butter definitely finding a really good play there. Cyberkirk is looking for a play, and Jungle Butter is being helped there by him. And it's two picks, three picks, and that's the fourth probably. And that should be game. Only the Renekton Phobos is left alive. And it is just as we were saying that Greasy Goblins is going to make this first game an absolute stomp. Definitely not expecting that one. And yeah, we see them close out the first game with excellence.
I definitely agree. Definitely not the game and I was expecting. Not the game I was expecting. I thought there might be a little bit more of a fight back from the side of the Quantify squad, but I will admit it is a bit gloomy days when your Wukong is forced to use the Cyclone to clear out his own jungle camps. But nonetheless, very well played from the side of Greasy Goblins. And that bot lane is, at least to me, what stood out. It was a bunch of very good hooks which gave them so much pressure when it came down to that bot lane in that early play. So definitely, to me, I can't pick one MVP. I feel like it is the duo down in the bot lane, which I'll have to give my MVP to. But definitely want to hear your thoughts on who you would give yours over to for correct.
I will completely disagree with you. I'm sorry. To me,
Yeah.
Jungle Buddha just did the like greatest performance on the side of Greasy Goblins because his bot lane already was winning, and then he found plays on every single lane. He accidentally mastered his quest of just being a menace on Nocturne. And yes, scoreline wise, Talia was better than him because she got more of the kills. But I think all of the plays have been happening around Nocturne after minute 10. And that is, quite frankly, intimidating.
It's understandable, and yeah, I guess you can see it, and that is why there's two of us to offer, different viewpoints, even if the other viewpoint is wrong. Nah, all jokes aside, yeah, definitely a very good play, I feel like, overall, from the side of the Greasy Goblin squad, and I will admit the jungle did make a lot of impact in that play. He played in that game, sorry, he played, I feel like, the Nocturne exactly how he needed to play, was where he needed to be. Well, it was just the hooks from hacks that I was personally impressed with. Yes, Nautilus does have, and I think most of the community would agree, one of the widest hitboxes in this game when it does come to hooks. Maybe rivaled by things like Morgana Q and things like Ash Arrow, but still, when it comes to hooks, definitely one of the widest ones. And still, especially that hook in the mid lane is to me what stood out when he was able to find Prophet even in the middle of all of those people. And that's what stood out to me at least. But we'll see if he can keep up that performance once we head on into this game number two. We're going to take a little bit of a break here before we do that, just to get ourselves set up, just to get ourselves hyped up for this game number two of this series between Quantiy and Greasy Goblin. So don't go anywhere, guys. We're going to be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to game number 2 between the Greasy Goblins and Quantiy. And already flying through this banning phase, pretty similar bans here, but the one difference we are seeing is gonna be that Ash getting taken away by the side of Quantiy, and clearly was much more than they could handle based on how game number 1 went.
Yeah, I think I like a lot of the bans Quantiy is putting out there, banning out the high priority ADC picks, and Greasy Goblins kind of sticks with their previous bans. And they also pick up the Nautilus on B1. This should be very counter pickable for Quantiy, I feel. But like counter picks won't matter if we see another performance on Nautilus like that.
Yeah, definitely not. There was a lot of hooks being hit, and I was at least very impressed with how he played it out in the last game. And it is again gonna be high priority on that Azir coming out from Quantiy. And I would love to see them pick up. I feel like an AD carry here. Azaya would, I think, be ideal here. It is still on the table, wasn't taken away, but it's gonna be the Braum lock-in instead, which I feel like this is gonna be the time Greasy Goblins can pick up the Zaya, but we'll see what they end up going with. Could be the Caitlyn on their side instead. Caitlyn is a champion that we've seen getting even more play nowadays since the recent buffs coming in, so people are sort of picking her up again, trying to get used to her again. And so far, I'm seeing a lot of priority on this Azir, but I don't know whether it was just because they was so far ahead or whether they just got rolled because of the gold difference, but I didn't see much from the Azir in game number 1, and there is the Zaya that I was talking about. I will admit,
Her
I'm a
was
little
so
bit
funny.
confused by Quantify didn't pick that up, but I guess it is just not in their repertoire.
I think one thing I want to say, I don't like the Azir on R1. I don't like it a lot. I think if they want to pick Azir first rotation, they should do it on free. Because it is a great pick, but revealing it so early just leaves you doomed to get counterpicked with the Talia most of the time again. And I think most of the time you're giving up a lot of pressure in the mid lane in general because Azir takes some time to come online. Yes, he's a very safe pick and he's a blind pickable champion, but that does not matter all too much if you have no map pressure and Greasy Goblins can just roll over you on every lane because their jungle can invade your jungler. Their mid laner can move out of lane more flexibly than yours. And I think this is definitely a weakness that Greasy Goblins can tackle in draft right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I 100% agree with you. I'm not a big fan of this Azir just because there are so many good picks into it. And just as a note, I do believe that first one on the red side is the Renekton. It just unfortunately was not locked in time. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Azir either. I feel like there's so many better first picks out there or second picks, and I personally, I'm a little bit confused as to why they didn't pick up the Zaya and a strong support alongside that when it came to the Quantiy R1, R2, but ends up going with the Azir, ends up going with the Braum, and Braum being a good pick into the Nautilus does give you a lot of peel against that. And I do feel like, see, depending on what they ban here on the side of the Greasy Goblins, is gonna be the Vayne ban. And with leaving your AD carry this far last, I feel like you're gonna want to give the counter pick over to the bot lane.
Yeah,
Or well,
I,
I
I
mean,
think so too.
yeah,
Especially pairs over Braum.
hmm, they already have their matchup, but still, I don't like leaving AD carry pick this far down.
Yeah, I agree. I think AD carries are like usually very like good picks to make. And especially if the Ezreal is locked in right now, I'm gonna be really upset. Because look at this. You could have picked the Ezreal on one and would have been fine. Because there's not a lot of things that can touch an Ezreal that easily. There's no straight up counter picks to Ezreal, especially if you ban the Kai'Sa, that is rather easy to abuse, like in isolation matchups versus Ezreal. But with the Ezreal being picked up, you have so much flexibility to just move your support around the map and have a safe laner on the bot side that can easily also be a weak side. And yeah, I'm just not a fan of that being picked on 4. Uh, that being said, though, Jace locked in for Greasy Goblins is something that I really, really like. And I'm hoping that whoever is going to be playing the Jace, whether it's the top laner or the mid laner, knows what they're doing, because Jace gameplay always is very impressive to me. And the Singed lock in, what? Alright, we are getting some spice in the show matches, finally. I'm very hyped for this draft already.
I was
Uh,
gonna say, this is something you've been hoping for, right?
yes, for ages. I have been practically waiting for spice, and I'm hoping actually that it's a Singed mid and a Jace top.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like, oh, imagine if it's a Singed mid with Predator and he just runs bot lane over and over again with the
He could do
Nautilus.
that. I and 100% wholeheartedly think he could do that into an Azir. Azir is not strong enough to like contest Singed wave clear early on. Sure, Singed is going to take a bit of poke, but second wind D shield should be more than enough to make up for that.
Yeah, definitely. And I 100% agree with you. I think in a show match you gotta have a little bit of fun with it, gotta show a little bit of spice, and Singed is definitely that. And I do want to hop on the point you made earlier with the Ezreal. I 100% agree with you. If you are gonna pick a safe champion, if you're gonna look in an Ezreal, there is no reason it should be this late on. I still think they should have slammed the Zaya. I wholeheartedly believe that despite it being a cinch, whether it is a cinch mid, whether it's a cinch top, I feel like Greasy Goblins have taken this draft. I feel like they have a lot of avenues to play around. It's gonna be everyone on their team but the Zaya that's able to trigger the Sejuani passive, that's able to sort of get that off and get that rolling. And with that being said, it is a lot of poke coming out of Jace as well to answer to the poke of the Azir, of the Ezreal. And I don't know if you agree with me, Fukuro. I'll get your point in a moment, but I feel like Greasy Goblins have taken this draft for themselves and they've wholeheartedly won this draft.
Yeah, 100%. I think this draft is like a landslide. I will ask the same question that I've asked like in our last show match. I don't know if these teams have coaches doing their drafts or if the players are drafting themselves. But at least for like this draft, I think there has been a lot of things just like in pick order alone that on the side of Quantiy, at least to me, it did not seem all that reasonable. Um, whereas Greasy Goblins actually have like a solid reason to pick certain stuff like on certain times. I think the Sejuani on 3 was a great addition to the team, and the fourth and fifth pick for blue side being like top and mid in this sense make a lot of sense. And overall, I think that alone can be a reason why I like Greasy Goblins draft so much more than Quantifies.
I definitely agree, and it is gonna be the Singed top, so we we won't be seeing Predator Singed mid, unfortunately. Not that much spice quite yet, but they have stepped their foot into the kitchen. They've started cooking up something, cooking up a recipe for themselves. But so far, it is gonna be like we said, Singed top, Chase mid, which means that I'm expecting for most of the Sejuani pressure to be towards that bot side. I'm expecting me to facilitate the Zaya, facilitate that Nautilus. And with how God of Hacks has been playing, so far he should be able to set up these plays for his jungler with the hooks he's been hitting. And yes, you do have that arcane shift coming out from the Ezreal, but I feel like if you end up ganking this bot lane, you can just try also focus down the Braum. Yes, you can just have the Braum jump away into the Ezreal once he arcane shifts away. But if you execute it right, if you sort of coordinate it well, and depending on the wave state down in the bot lane, it might be an easy gank depending on how they do it. And I expect sort of no pressure towards this top side. I don't know for Kuro. It's been a while since I've seen a Singed. How does this work?
I haven't seen a Singed either, like in the last few games I've played. That being said, though, I think we follow rule one: don't follow Singed, and we'll also follow another rule: ignore the Singed. Singed players are just their own kind of being, and I'll respect them, and that's all they'll get from me. That being said, though, I think we still have like great matchups with like mid to jungle duos. I think both junglers could play for the mid lane. I am like mostly hoping that there's going to be a lot of attention put uh, into the mid lane from the Sejuani, because Azir won't be having a great lane into Jace. Jace should be the one looking for trades, be looking for the like control of the wave as well. And I think Jace should be the one dominating that matchup. However, I've pointed out before, Azir has that scaling factor and has a really safe kit to get out of most situations with his QE and Emperor's Divide combo. So there is a good shot for Azir to get out of lane fine and then scale up. And we have the scaling for Quantiy on their side. And Greasy Goblins has okay scaling with the Jace, but I think overall, if Xayah is not going to go for uh, like the biggest surprising build that is going to be like dishing out tons of damage, that late game is going to be really rough for Greasy Goblins.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There is a lot of range, and not even range, just zoning that's gonna be coming out from the squad of Quantify. It is the Azir and Ezreal doing the poke while GP sets up his barrels. And once he's got those set up, walking into those late game and later on into the game, like you said, once he has a couple of items under his belt, is gonna be extremely painful. Even if you are this Sejuani, even if you are this Singed, it is still going to hurt like hell to be walking into those. So I feel like definitely have to keep your eye around for the GP barrels. Definitely gonna have to get your vision in before sort of you start up those fights, so you have kind of see the GP. You can see where he's starting off. You can see where he's placing his barrels. But we're gonna have to see that as we get later on into the game, as we are finally on the Rift for this game number 2 of the show match between the Greasy Goblins and Quantiy.
Yeah, and I mean, this time it looks like both teams are going to 5 points. Uh, I was hoping for a little activity from the side of Quantify, but they don't go for it, and that's respectable. Um, so yeah, now we will head into the game, and honestly, the more we've like talked about the draft, the more I've like warmed up to the draft of Quantify. I still think that Greasy Goblins have won the draft overall. Uh, but we'll see how this game is going to turn out. And I mean, with just like how strong they've been playing last game, I have really high expectations of them for the second game.
I definitely do as well. And yes, I do agree with you. There are avenues. Oh, here, here comes the Singe tech, yay. But there are definitely avenues that they can play towards on the side of Quantify. They have that range like we talked about earlier. They have that zoning with the Azir Ezreal. And if you do get ahead somehow on a poke comp like this, I don't see it happening with the little early game that they have on the side of Quantify. But if you do get yourself ahead on that Quantify squad, playing against poke like this can be very, very detrimental as we see some.
Uh,
This is why I love
Cyberskirk
Singe,
is
man.
enjoying this game already. I think it's very respectable. I'm personally not a huge fan of looking to proxy at level 1 because your stats are really like bad. And as you can see, the minion damage is rather unpleasant for him. And now Phobos is not able to capitalize on that though, and is going to lose minions. Sinch had to ghost for this, but overall I think this play is still more or less worth it for him. He loses 2 summoners, but zones Phobos off XP, and it's fine.
Definitely a W play. And like you said it yourself earlier, Jinx players are, no, sorry, not Singed players are just another breed in themselves. And you're already seeing that on the Rift, starting from that level 1, a TP back into this top lane. Unfortunately,
When
it is
look at the
not the
knot on
Predator
this play,
Singed.
there's a big trade happening. God of Hex taking a big chunk for that though. And Prophet did go for a lot of auto attacks. The Feather Caller though evens out the trade as there is more spread damage on the side of yeah,
Oh,
Greasy Goblins. And now look at Phobos, he's looking for another trade against Cyberskirk and is not able to take him out, but the flash forward is going to be interesting. Jerry K, very low HP, Cyberskirk is going to be running, but he's going to not get the kill. Sejuani is instead going to be picking up with her Q, and it's a 1-for-1. Both junglers managed to pick up kills, and overall I think Phobos is more than happy with how this turned out. This could have been rather bad if
it
they
was
didn't get the
very close
chance.
to being a disaster for the side of Quantify. And I'm not gonna lie for Kuro, I am already liking this game a lot more when it comes to game number 1. They are putting up much more of a fight, I feel like, in this game. And I love to see more of these brawly games coming out from both teams, but we might see some more brawling
Ooh,
in the
another player
topside
not delivered.
river.
Jerry K has this bot lane priority straight, and he does get the crap over that. But is he going to be investing this tempo now into any play on the bot side? Both junglers are hovering for the play after all. Jungle Buddha is getting spotted out, and he's frankly not too scared. He's actually looking for the play right now. Gets the knock up onto Jerry K, and that should be a CC. A lot of damage coming in, and look at Snacks right now. He's taking, dealing so much damage, and this is 1 kill. And no more Feather Collar means he's not gonna get a second one, but that's just 3 goals essentially for Snacks and forces Quantify out of lane.
The Nautilus strikes again as Hax ends up hitting another hook there down toward the bot lane. Not as impressive of a hook as we saw in game number 1. There was a lot of members there to hit, so I would have been more surprised if he didn't hit anybody. But nonetheless, a good play coming out from the side of Greasy Goblins, knowing that they have that early game CC, knowing that they have that lockdown on a single target. And like you said, Snacks just absolutely free firing on that backline, doing all the damage that they needed to get that play going. And it's going to be a chunk in the mid lane as we already see the Jace take an early advantage against the Zero. Should be TP burn, I feel like, from both mid laners here, which means that there might not be a TP advantage for anybody, but we're going to see that as Jace ends up backing, ends up TPing in. It's going to be both TPs burned from this mid lane.
Yeah, and I think now with like the back coming in, Donkey from Shaq should be more than happy because he has his lost chapter, and Chase does not have any lethality yet, which could be detrimental. He went for the tier instead, and two long swords. And let's just say, I think this is going to be like some calm minutes now for the Azir mid lane, because without the lethality from the early Dirk, I don't think there's too much kill pressure that the Jace will have. Another play on the top side. The Sinch is once more getting tested, but look at the damage on Phobos. Phobos is going to fall, and there's the flip coming in, a double kill for the Sinch. Absolutely beautiful stuff. 4-1, and that's just another good start. 6 minutes into the game, we're already looking at a 1.5k gold lead, and Greasy Goblins once again starting strong.
Here comes the beekeeper buzzing his way on into this game, and gonna be 2 kills for the Singe. Picked up a 1000 gold lead when it comes to the top lane matchup for the side of the Goblins, and it is looking very, very good for them so far. A 2000 overall gold lead, and most of it is gonna be towards the top lane. As we say that, a solo, well, no, a ganking kill in the mid lane. You said there wasn't much kill pressure without him having the serrated Dirk. What if he brings his jungler around?
I genuinely don't know. It's very hard for Jerry K to find plays. And Buddha, I don't know if he's doing this intentionally or not, but he always reads Jerry K's plays so well and manages to counter them, be it with a play on the other side of the map, but mostly with just counter gangs, just being there at the same time as Jerry K, and then suddenly the gang just not turning out in Jerry's favor. That being said, though, Jerry is once again under pressure, flashes forward from Snacks and Ogama, and that's 1 kill for Snacks, and that's enough of the play. Prophet going forward, eating over the wall, gets the kill on Barak, but is going to fall himself, and there's more plays happening. Donkey from Shaq has to be careful. Jungle Buddha is going for a little bit of a trade, and overall, this is disastrous, I would say, for Quantiy.
I definitely agree. I don't know whether Prophet dashing over the wall and getting a kill is necessarily worth it, because you can see on the bot lane, he's gonna be the wave pushed in for the bot lane of Greasy Goblins, and again, just top lane shenanigans absolutely going
Cyberkirk is
on.
rather annoying on this play, but I don't know if Phobos ever catches up. And look at his damage. He's actually taking so much. Is he going to die to the poison? There's minion damage. The This is why you don't follow a Singed. This is just like educational footage right now. You can add the educational tag to the stream as we speak. Follow rule number 1, guys, or else you will end up like Phobos. That being said, though, this is rather grim. That play, all of those plays on the top side are not working out whatsoever.
And Phobos not reading the rule book before he got into this game. The first rule of League of Legends, like you said, never follow the poison man, as Singe tends to be a devious creature. Why? And this, see when I said earlier that Nautilus is one of the biggest hitboxes in the game when it comes to his hooks, and there it is.
I mean, it's just incredible. Like, Nautilus Qs are probably the wonkiest hook in the game, and there has not even been an effort to fix that. And now look at Cyberkirks. He's looking for that play on the mid lane, and he just needs to wait for Donkey to step up just a little bit too much. And I think beautiful Emperor's Divide. Is it enough? I don't think so. The flash forward is not going to save him. The Q is not away, getting him away either. And that's a kill for Barack Ogama as he picks it up with the auto tag and Q.
This is this okay. So normally when we see a Singe pick, it is something that's funny, haha, because you feel like you have nothing else to pick. But with how Cyber played that, you can tell this is not his first time playing Singe. This is a pick that he's played before. He played that beautifully, getting the ground off and popping that ghost onto that zero to make sure he cannot dash away. It's gonna be Herald picked up here for the side of the Goblins. Jericho is around if he wants to try stop that play, but is he gonna throw a sapling down and gonna be able to walk away from that one? And where do you sort of expect this Herald to go? I would expect it to go maybe into that bot lane, but do you think it should be into the Jace potentially?
I think it should be into the Jace, but there could also like be a good point made if this top lane play goes well, but instead it's not all that great. It's still 2 for 1, but the Ezreal ult
Oh
is
my
going to
god.
change things, and Donkey is actually able to pick up the kill. This is huge for them, and well, now Ezreal without an ult, there is a bit more pressure applied on the bot lane, but overall, I think this is a great play that we saw right there from the side uh, of Quantiy.
I couldn't agree more. The true shot barrage absolutely came
Oh, but
in clutch.
look at Barakugama right there. He is not on vision, and the flash hook forward, and he should be dealing so much damage, and he does. He picks up a kill for himself. 3-1. This Jace is absolutely brutal. TPing back to the mid lane right now, and he has his Duskblade ready, which means you are not going to be expecting the Azir to be having a fun time in mid lane anymore.
Definitely not. This is gonna be a Jace that's going to be dealing a lot of damage, and Donkey might be in trouble again.
Oh, look at this play. Sejuani is right there, gets the CC off. Could have maybe been a bit more patient. I don't know if it cancelled the Azir E. It probably didn't. But Emperor's Divide is going to save his life for now. The
Oh,
snipe almost taking him out. Has to back off for sure. But that's a free Drake for Greasy Goblins. And looking at this game and last game, they have been bringing heat both games so far. They are absolutely stacked, and I can't wait to see them face off other like really high tier teams in Split 5.
Greasy Goblins being the skill shot masters right now, and this top lane, this
Beautiful
could
play.
be
The Seventh
bad.
Cleric should be able to pick up the kill here for sure. He's even going into the melee with the
Oh, stopwatch.
Phobos has the play now. He has the flash forward. He's going to flash over, find the key, executes it perfectly, and finally gets his revenge on the top lane. Look at another Gangplank abusing a Sense Reaver. Has not been able to enjoy lane for a minute, but once he has that Sense Reaver, he has to be respected.
He just Phobos just said, "I've had enough of your shenanigans." Ends up getting that solo kill, flashes over into the alcove, and said, "I do not need to chase the Singed if I just kill him before he starts his running," and ends up picking that up. Like you said, a big spike coming out with the Essence River is gonna be dealing a lot of damage, but I'm looking at the squad of Greasy Goblins, and they seem to be a team that just hits their skill shots. We already saw the Jace Knight being very close. We saw on the other side also skill shots being hit. The true shot barrage went all the way across the map. Jerry K ended up knocking the opposing laner into it and just ended up being able to live on a sliver of HP as well, supporting this mid lane now, but is gonna find himself with a mid lane tier 1 loss, and that should open up the map for the side of Greasy Goblins by a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And we're heading into a territory where any play that Greasy Goblins is looking for could snowball the lead to a point where it's uncontrollable for Quantiy. So Quantiy is still having like a few solid members that are like the backbone of the team right now, like the Ezreal, for example, is really important. And I mean, look at the damage onto Phobos already. Barakugama dealing so much damage. Looking to take out the turret, maybe a bit greedy, taking a few turret shots there. And there's Jerry K on the top side. There is, however, God of X also hovering for Barak and kind of making sure he's not going to fall here. And that's great.
And they should be able to know that Jerry K is up here. We'll see if he gets
Oh,
a play.
beautiful
Oh
triple
my
barrel onto
god.
Barak. And now we see Jerry K looking for the play. God of Hacks has to be careful. He's not going to get out of the root at all. Is going to be knocked into the GP, but like I think he has a natural tankiness to get out of this one. True Shot Barrage also invested. Overall, positive play for Greasy Goblins, but also like a valiant effort at the very least uh, from Quantify. And I think, realistically speaking, this is not even a bad play for Quantify. Even if they had to invest resources and didn't get anything out of it, they bought themselves more time because the time Greasy Goblin spends disengaging, they can't be looking for plays at the same time, which is great.
Definitely is, and you can just see the item difference so far is mainly in that jungle. It is already gonna be the mythic coming through for Buddha here, and on the other side, no mythic yet, no items yet for Jerry K on the marker. But a play on the top side could change
Oh,
things.
look at this. This is rather bad. This is just a free kill for Barak, and look at the Jace. It's not a pick that I have expected to see today, but we see it masterfully executed by Barak, and he is so ahead of everyone. He's almost at he is at 9 CS per minute, 4 kills, 1 death, and 2 assists. He has 50% kill participation, and there has been a lot of independent plays all over the map. So that is a really good kill participation.
Definitely, and you can just see the difference he's making in this game. Like you said, 4-on-1 Duskblade finished up, and we've all been in those games where the enemy Jace gets fed out of nowhere. Suddenly, he starts shock blasting you even before the team fight begins with his poke for 400 damage per shock blast, and there's just no counterplay. But we'll see if they have counterplay on the bot side here. It's gonna be the arcane shift over the wall, which should keep Prophet safe. But my eyes are on Cyber. He could run anyone down any moment he pleases. Ghost is up, everything is up for this
The
city.
hook of hacks just barely missing. Now Jerry K is looking for the roots and he's going to find God of Hacks first, but like there's a lot of damage coming in return from the Feather Storm, and there is more to be seen. That's a 2 for 2, I believe. No, a 2 for 1 for Quantify, and they're very happy with this. But now look at this is brutal. Prophet is just out of there, and Cyber is absolutely sprinting at him with the ghost. Nothing Ezreal can do there. Wow.
Was a 2-for-1, ends up in a 2-for-2 after the great play after the fact that Cyber made. There is going to be the bottom skull crab picked up as well. Cloud Drake on the cards, which means that we are for sure gonna have a soul worth fighting for. Chemtech soul already off the table. Cloud soul gonna be off the table, which means that this soul could be big for whichever team gets it. But a bit of a standoff here on the bot side jungle. Both teams know exactly that something is up, and nobody wants to walk up. Nobody wants to be the one who face checks, but it might just be the GP. Phobos
This is
walks in.
really good for Quantify, I think, because this fight is starting also chaotic, but Jerry K falls too early. He's so squishy on the Maokai, I'm surprised. But overall, Greasy Goblins are really low HP. Phobos has to be careful though, he's literally in one-shot range from any shot that Barak is going to fire. And this is not an easy Drake for Greasy Goblins to take, but ultimately Quantify backs off, and I think that's a respectable choice. That's fair enough of them.
Definitely, and with Jerry K falling, the lack of a jungler is what determined the play that came out of the Greasy Goblins. And now that the Drake was taken, Baron is gonna be on the cards. And with this Baron being on the cards next, it's gonna put a lot of pressure up towards the top side of the map. It's gonna be that both teams should be heading up their Cyber, trying to be sneaky with the red buff here, seeing if he can steal us. I'm sure Jerry Cage is gonna walk over, let him leash it, and maybe smite it away. But now that the rest of the squad has arrived, might not even get the chance to do so, as D Jungle is gonna make sure that red buff is secured, gonna make sure that's his red buff to take. But Jerry nonetheless gets a jungle camp. Might not be the red buff, but does end up picking the big raptor there with the smite that he has. And this Baron might honestly not be on the cards for much longer, as you can already see. Definitely an objective that Greasy Goblins wanna take, a objective that they are putting a lot of vision and a lot of pressure around. Already the Chuchu barrage is gonna be expended just to see if they're on it, just to see if they're trying to do something sneaky with it. As you can see, Barack Obama already
This
with
is a
Phobos, but here
play that
comes
he can
Cyber.
definitely look for. Phobos on the escape, but he's not getting out of this one, and he also does not have the damage, and he just has blown up. Cyberskirks taking his 7th kill of the game on this exceptional Singe pick.
Who saw this coming when he locked in Cinch, right? 7-on-3 at the moment. Jack Show finished up, realized Boots of Swiftness in his inventory. We'll see what they can pick up with that kill that they managed to get. We already see Cyber just hanging on to that bot lane. Barack Ogama ends up giving it up for the Singe, which does mean that it's gonna be potentially a tower falling down in that bot lane. Nobody currently responding to it from the side of Quantiy. You can just see so much of this pressure is on this top side, and Cyber is gonna make his way over as well. Wants to be the supporting pillar for the rest of his team, but we'll see if they can get a pick here. Hacks already looking aggressively for any hook he can get, aggressively looking for any
And
of these
they're
picks, and it's
starting
gonna
the
be
Baron.
Baron
This
started up
is
here.
melting rather quickly. God of Hacks is in a bit of a weird spot, but he's taking control on the map. But actually, Greasy Goblins is going to back out and have to cancel. And maybe they're looking for a 5-on-5 fight now. Cyberskurks is ghosting in and going forward. Is going to be stopped by the Braum, but only briefly. Is it enough to live? No, he falls. That's the first kill, but in return, the Azir also falls, and he has all his tools still up. It's so unfortunate. Phobos taking a lot of damage, and that's another kill on the side of Greasy Goblins. And they're looking for more Barakugama, going for the triple kill on 1 HP. 4-2-1 trade, and this one ends in a quadra kill for Barakugama as he finds the snipe onto Ezreal, and this should be the game end, possibly.
Jace going in big there, almost getting the penta kill, ended up getting the 4K in that top side fight. And again, it is the story that we keep seeing. It keeps being Quantiy who start off the fight. This time around, it was Cyber who just ran up in there like a madman in the middle of everybody. Mid lane in his falls for the side of Quantiy, and a Cyber on this Singe is creating so much chaos, creating so much disruption in the middle of everybody. Is basically letting Snacks free fire. It is letting Barack Ogama do his thing in these team fights, and you saw it right there. 4 kills for the Jace. Muramana finished up now. It is going to be the Cyrildas finished up, the Duskblade. If this Jace wasn't hurting already, with that Cyrildas picked up, he's definitely gonna be hurting just that much more now with having that armor pen, even against Jerry K. And you see Phobos just hunting, see what he can get with those barrels, any damage he can find. But again, Baron is still on the cards, and for Kuro, I feel like this Baron is just gonna go to Greasy Goblins with how they've been playing so far.
Yeah, and they're building up so much pressure. There's also the Drake, and with like a split objective situation, they could easily try and force one and then make Quantiy come over to that objective that they're contesting, and then just back out of from it and take the other instead. And there's not much that Quantiy can do against that, I feel.
Yeah, definitely not. And you can already see they're gearing up to take this Drake. I don't think Quantiy are in a position to respond with a Baron Rush necessarily. Also, not a ton of damage for it with having the Ezreal instead of something like a Caitlyn or something like a traditional AD carry. Not a lot of damage, but as I say that, they are going to be starting it up, and this should be an absolute rumble in the top side.
Yeah, this is just a really quick Baron, and Quantiy is there, and the fight breaks out. The Emperor's Divide is going to be absolutely huge. Objective bounty claimed. Jerry K finally finding that hero smite, and this could be the game-changing play. There is so many plays happening all at once, and It is ultimately going to be a 2 versus 2 in the end. And Prophet takes out another, and Jerry K, the hero of this game right now, is left alive with the Baron buff, and he's going to take the recall.
Jerry K with the Baron recall should be able to get out, and what a play coming out from Quantiy. They had to go for the 50-50. As soon as I said they might not have the damage, they said screw it, we have to try. We are down by 4,000 gold. The game is not looking good for us. Let's try to get something. Let's try to pull something off. And Jerry K ends up being the one who gets the Baron, ends up being the one who smites it away, ends up being the one who potentially, with that play, could have just saved it for the side of Quantiy. And what a play coming out indeed. The absolute madman of a shot caller on the side of Quantiy ends up going for it, ends up getting it. And yes, it is only going to be Jerry K who has the Baron buff. But the main thing is that the Baron buff is off the cards for the side of the Goblins there. They cannot no longer get it for the next 5 minutes, which buys you that much more time to potentially get this Azir into the game, get him a couple more items, and you can already see 2 items finished up. Should be the Rabadons going for him up next with that needlessly large rod already in his inventory. And if he can get that, I feel like Quantiy might be in a decent position to go up against the
Yeah,
absolute death squad that is the Greasy
definitely.
Goblins.
And we see Phobos
Oh,
falling, which is really, really unfortunate and bad for Quantiy. But you mentioned the Baron buff that Rark has. This can be used to stall out the push as well, which buys them time. You mentioned it. Time is a really important resource to Quantiy right now. And with all the tools they have to buy time for Ezreal and Azir to just scale up, I can definitely see Donkey and Prophet suddenly becoming heroes when Quantiy needs them the most.
for sure, and like you said, using a Baron buff defensively, and it's gonna be the push on the bot lane. Cyber putting that pressure in the mid lane, but with the Zero Tower, gonna offer them a lot more defensive capabilities, and Jerry K's Baron buff is doing just that as well. No objectives on the map for anybody to pick up, so it is gonna be a little bit of a stalemate. I feel like coming out from both teams, a little bit of a ceasefire, and you see they're trying to base right now, trying to get their items in. And if we can take a look at the individual gold quickly as well, I just want to see how far off 900 gold in the pocket of Barack Obama at the moment. It's gonna be I feel like he's not that far off of his fifth item here. And once he gets that, it is gonna be so difficult to fight against this Jace. These EQs are gonna be so hurtful. They're gonna be hurting so bad. And with the double needlessly large rod in the inventory of the Azir, so close to hitting that spike as well. And that's exactly what they need on the side of Quantiy. They need to be able to get those items. They need to be able to hit that spike. And like you said earlier, Fukuro, they need that time.
Yeah, and I think they're getting it. There's still like there's the soul on board right now at 30 minutes, but it's a cloud soul. Yes, it is great, but it's not game winning. It gives you good stats, but I don't think the stats will be good enough to the point where Quantiy will fall and completely lose the game if they give it. And that is valuable because that means that's 5 minutes of them still able to farm up, scale up. And if they use those 5 minutes without getting caught, I think they have a good shot at just turning the game. In fact, they're even looking to contest the break, which is, in my opinion, a bit risky because they could be caught out. But who knows what will happen, really? Jerry K is taking a lot of damage. There's Barack Obama coming in with a lot of damage. And then there's the Emperor's Divide, and suddenly the fight is shifting into a full-on fight. There's the Featherstorm also being used, and there's so much damage. And this is the first time Quantiy is looking to fall to the hands of Greasy Goblins. It looks like a clean ace. Only one more member remaining is just the Braum. I don't think the Braum has any right defending the turrets right here. And Greasy Goblins just take the win here.
The solo
Unexpectedly.
defense coming out from the Braum, and like you said, no chance he gets this one off. And Fukuro, that is 2-0 for the Goblins, and what a game. And I want to hear your thoughts up first. Who do you think was the MVP of that game, and why do you think they deserve that title?
I think it's so hard for me to say, but I'm gonna give it to Barak because he handled the Jace really well. And as much as I would love to give it to Cyber because he did have influence all over the map, I think ultimately in team fights, he wasn't as important as Barak because Barak just dished out all the damage, was responsible for all the poke, and when the engages and chaotic parts of the fight happened, he always kept his cool and just had really good target focusing.
I could not agree more. 26,000 damage ends up coming out from the Jace, and the only follow up to that is gonna be the GP, which I feel like was a bit of an underlying threat the more that game went on. We saw, and you brought it up as well for Koro, how much damage he ended up doing once completing that essence. So there were 3 items on him as well. And I feel like he just didn't get much done that game, but I feel like it's not because of him. There was just so many disjointed fights, and GP as a champion just needs that setup before they go into it. Needs to be able to stand behind a team that can pick their fights well, which I feel like just wasn't the team and wasn't the showing that Quantiy end up getting for themselves. And going into this game number 3, going to our last game of the day for Koro, I do want to ask, what do you hope to see change in the Quantiy lineup?
Well, first off, just the change I generally want to see is show matches not being 3-0s anymore. We have seen a lot of 3-0s in the last few show matches. I want this one to at least close out on a 2-1. And I think Quantiy just needs to work on that draft in the third game a bit better. I think they showed that this game was doable for them, and I, I'm almost certain that they can go toe to toe, head to head with Greasy Goblins if they just find the right like draft and find weaknesses in their opponent's draft as well.
Yeah, definitely gonna have to hit the books and see what they can do when it comes to the drafting phase. And I feel like that is where we've seen most of the issues. It hasn't been necessarily in game. I feel like most of their issues have come from draft. And in the first 2 games, at least, we'll see what they can do in game number 3, as we're gonna head into a short little break here in just a moment before that game begins, just to set our stuff up, just to see what we can do for the third game of the day, the last game of the day. So don't go anywhere. This should be a banger of a game. Like you've said, Fukura, we'll see if they can bring it to a 2-1 or whether it is going to be a complete shutout in another show match in today's game. So don't go anywhere, guys. We're going to be right back. And here we go for our last and final game of the day, game number 3, 2-0 at the moment for the Goblins. And Fukuro, looking at these bans and looking and seeing what has changed so far, it is nothing. We are seeing stock standard bans, we're seeing bans we have seen all series. And do you think that's a good or bad thing?
Well, it depends on what Quantiy is going to do with their third and last ban for the first rotation. If it's not the Nautilus, I think they're going to be facing yet another like early Nautilus token, and I think that's a good choice that they managed to actually ban it away this time.
Yeah,
It shows that they're
definitely.
adapting, and that's great. Maokai last ban for red side also is really smart, I think, because it's just a really good overall blind pick, especially on blue side. You can just put priority on the Maokai, so that being out of the window is great. But that means the Ash is open and it's locked in for Quantiy.
It seems like no matter what, the Quantify seem to have an answer. It's gonna be the Ash, like you said, first pick, and this is where, again, I know I said it before, but I wouldn't mind a Zaya Slam here, or potentially go with the Caitlyn Milio. I know it didn't work out in the past against the Ash, but this time Nautilus is off the table and they've done it. There is the Zaya Slam on that R1, and I am hoping for potentially a jungler here. I'm hoping that they don't lock in support quite yet. Should be left for at least R3, depending on how they draft on the other side. But the Sejuani, I wouldn't mind seeing. It was really good last game, but never mind that, as is being the Taric hover and
I
not
like it.
bad at all, I
I
think,
like it a
coming
lot.
out.
I think
Definitely.
Tarek is a weird pick that is like not necessarily really blindable. And I think Milio into that is a great answer as well. But I think overall, the Tarek is flexible enough, especially with Xayah that is rather safe with her ultimate later on, that you can just put him out of your lane eventually and just decide, okay, we make a move with our jungler, and this is going to be a great support jungle duel. And his ultimate will be so huge in teamfights that I don't think laning phase will matter all too much because you will be putting yourself in a bit of a detriment in laning phase, at least.
Yeah, definitely. And it is gonna be the Azir once again, despite the Azir being shown every game, I believe, if I'm not completely mistaken, and not winning a game yet, it is gonna be picked once again, Jarvan Ben coming through here, and a lot of range so far. On the blue side here, you can see the Ashe with the Azir and the Milio range to buff that should be absolutely huge when it comes to the poke on that side. It's going to be the Nocturne
There's
ban this
so
time, which
many
I'm a
jungle
big fan of.
bans. I think this could be potential Silas jungle still. I think overall though, this is probably a reply to the Azir. And I'm not really that happy. There's once again an Azir picked up for Quantify. I think the pick in itself is not that terrible. It's, as I pointed out multiple times, a great scaling pick with a safe landing phase. However, it's a scaling pick, and that's like my biggest problem right now. I think Quantify has not shown against Greasy Goblins that they reach the point where the scaling suddenly starts to matter. And if they lose another early game, this could be just rinse and repeat from the last two games.
I mean, yeah, what is the point of picking scaling is to scale, but if you don't get to scale, then the scaling just goes away. And that's what I think what we've seen so far in these first two games as we have a bye on the red side here and a lot of early game coming out compared to the blue side. And you can already see that bye once you hit that six, once you get that cease and desist. Very difficult champion to get away from, especially if there's a Taric by your side, it's gonna be the Xin Zhao answer into the Vi. And I'm actually quite a big fan of that. I feel like it does provide the early game that we were talking about. It provides the early game that they need on the side of Quantify here. And when it comes to this last pick, it is gonna be in the top lane. I would like to see potentially some front line. You already have the triple damage threats when it comes to the Ashe, Azir, and even the Zinzao can hurt quite a
Ooh,
lot. It's gonna be the
Volibear.
Volibear blind, and what the hell do you respond with into that if you're the
Is it going
Goblins?
to be like split push AP Volibear top lane, or what are we seeing here?
I like it though.
It is spicy, which I usually like, but right now I'm more confused than like feeling the heat on my tongue, which just in general is probably good. And I'm just waiting for the last pick, and we
Wait,
see fresh top lane. This
wait.
is officially a cook, and I am the biggest Greasy Goblins fan as of right now. I think they're the favorites for the league. I think they already won Split 5, even though it has not started already. I think the fresh top lane lock-in is one of the most Giga Chat things to do. This could, however, also be a Tarek top now that I'm thinking about it. Both is possible.
It, huh? I'm I'm trying to wrap my head around this, and I don't see why. Yes, I know we've been saying all day that we want them to cook. We've been saying all day that we want them to take a step into the kitchen, but this is where you've taken a too far step into the kitchen, I feel like. This is where you've sat yourself in the deep fryer and just sort of gone balls to the walls with it. And from what I'm seeing on my screen for Kuro, it is the Tarek top into what looks to be potentially a Xin Zhao in the top lane. I what is going on?
I mean, that is an option. Volibear jungle makes sense, and since our top is a niche thing that exists, and I think this might just be what we want to see. Just the most niche top lane matchup ever. uh, and with how top lane has been playing out for the last two games, it has been game one, it has been ignored for a lot of the time. Then game two, both teams have put attention to it and have been repeatedly ganking each other. What are they cooking up on the top lane right now? I definitely think Tarek won't be matching Sinzao's early pressure, even with a Vi on top. I think this is not going to be an easy lane whatsoever for the Tarek. But overall, if Tarek doesn't fall behind too much, he will outvalue a Sinzao top lane at like minute 12.
Yeah, I will say I do like the Tarek top a lot more than like the Zinzao top. I feel like it's like you said it yourself, scales a lot better into the later stages of the game. The early laning might be a little bit rough for him, but if you can get past that, if you can move into the phase where you get maybe one or two items without being too far behind on the Tarek, I feel like you might be fine. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm warming up to the Greasy Goblins draft, I think, more and more as I look at it. And I think they've brought themselves some great answers into things like the Volibear, into things like even the Zinzao. And the only thing that concerns me is if you can't get that Y engage in, if you can't get that potential Silas engage in with the Volibear ultimate, with the Ash ultimate, you are facing up against a comp that has a lot of range to play with. There's the Azir, there's the Ash with Milio buffing that attack range, and this is a comp that's going to be very, very hard to reach.
Yeah, definitely. I think overall, though, we need to like look at lanes again. We have mid lane that is going to be for once favored into Azir's side, I feel, because Silas is going to not be having the greatest time until he like finds a bit of items. We have the bot lane that can be decided on like every hook, which we have seen that hooks have been landed for 2 games straight. So I'm rather confident with the Greasy Goblins bot lane here. And then we have a top lane that is just trying to at least hit the minions, basically. I think there is a good argument to be made that Quantiy has finally found a draft that they won again and that they can play. I think this could be the cook that they needed from both teams. Uh, and I think a lot of this is going to be decided whether or not by whether or not Tarek is gonna be 0-3 by minute 10 or not, which is going to be so hyped to see.
Yeah, I feel like there is definitely a lot of pressure in this top lane, but to me, looking at these drafts, this is, like you already said, the one game that I feel like Quantified has more of a chance in than the other two. Of course, it is always a little bit rough with you already losing the first two games mentality wise. But again, like you said earlier, I think the main thing to remember in a state like this is that it is only a show match. You're not necessarily losing anything if you do end up going down 3-0. And I think it is, to me, what I would consider, if I was one of these teams, a great, or at least if I was on the team of Quantify, a great learning experience and a great sort of experience when it comes to their first SLE game. I'm unsure whether they have scrimmed any SLE teams or whether this is the first sort of game they have in SLE. But whether it is or not, I feel like they have a lot to take away from these two games.
I have to apologize to stream and to you, Dessa. I could not listen to you right now because I was lost in Tarek's pool party Tarek's like beautiful splash art for just a few minutes. That being said, though, I'm very excited to have the game loaded in right now, and I mean, we are hyped to see this game. And let's be real here, there is so much playmaking tools on both sides that I'm expecting the most explosive game so far from this game, and I'm so hyped for this.
I definitely agree, especially once some of these level sixes start hitting in, once Ogama starts stealing some of those enemy ultimates, and already gonna be the early XP lead actually for Phobos here, which is
That's
very
huge.
good for this Xin Zhao. And yeah, especially in a lane like the top lane,
Yeah,
where
hitting the
wave
level 2
management.
in the first wave is going to
Yeah.
be such a huge advantage. And I think the smartest, or not necessarily smartest, but like one of the smarter things you can do is forcing your enemy to like stay even with your minions, so you're not necessarily pushing, but also like not being pushed in. You can always, because you have that XP lead, contest the level 2. Instead, Phobos is opting for a push, which is also fair enough. He definitely secures the early level lead then, but it's rather easy for Cyber Lurks to just get out of that play though.
Oh,
But Jerry K on the early gank and the CC coming in from Phobos, but this is very dangerous for Cyber Lurks, and he's going to be taking a lot of damage to knock up on the next auto attack, not flashing forward like Phobos is careful on the play, and Cyber Lurks does live, but is already chunked down to half HP. That's a rather successful gank at minute 2, and Jerry K is looking for another. He's looking
there-
for another.
it's just pure abuse on the
and
Taric.
and I mean the why is there. I mean Jerry K has done nothing but clear his blue buff and sit on top lane for the first minute of like the minions being spawned, and I love that so much. And now the flash forward from jungle Buddha is insane, but Flobos also flashing out and is safe, and now he has no Volibear, he has to respect, and that's summoners being traded from mid lane and from jungle and top lane, and I like this. This is a spicy jungle game already.
And you said this is gonna be the most explosive game we have. It's already showing those remarks as Jerry even went ahead to the mid lane and paid a visit there before, heading off back towards his bot side. But you already see with him spending so much time in the top lane, getting nothing achieved. And when Jerry went around, or when the jungle came to top lane, it was the flash that ends up being burned from Phobos, which means once the jungle makes his way back into the top side, once his camp spawn, he can try look for that Xin Zhao again and has great setup with the Taric stun being right next to him and right by his side. And already you can see how good the Volibear is at farming, trying to catch up in those camps, trying to get his tempo back up after the early game that he had, or the first couple of minutes that he had. And so far, it is also the longest I think we've seen where bot lane has been just chilling and no
Yeah,
one's hit any hooks. So this is a good showing from Quantiy.
yeah, but I mean, also mid lane, like for once, Azir pick is paying off because Silas into Azir does not sound like a fun matchup that I would be picking myself. Uh, Barrack, however, is confident, and I mean, it's not wrong to be confident. You can see his performance from last game was great. So right now, like him being chunked out in lane doesn't have to mean anything necessarily. Also, look at like the HP on top lane. Phobos should probably not be opting for any plays right now. He has a bit of healing from his kit, but I think he just has to respect for now.
Yeah, definitely respect is the word of the day. And so far, he is doing just that. Both laners are going to be picking up that tier. I'm a little bit surprised to see Phobos pick up the tier. I definitely expected it from Cyber. I also don't see Zinzao top very often, so this might just be something that he tends to do every time he picks this, although I don't know how often you get to play around with Zinzao top. And so far, this is what we needed, I feel like, of from the side of the Goblins. This is what we needed from the Taric. He needs to be either even or ahead. Both
Yeah,
states are fine for him, but as long as, like you said it yourself, he doesn't fall too far behind, he will end up outscaling the Zinzal later on into the game. It's going to be a TP back, and this is where the jungle is back around. No flash for Phobos, so if they can get this gank off successfully, this might be huge for the side
yeah.
of the
And the
Greasy
Vice
Goblins.
cancels her back to look for the play. Meanwhile, Jerry K starting the bot side Drake. There's going to be leverage for both teams, but the gang comes in and Phobos, not aware of it, is going to fall first blood over to Jungle Buddha, and that is huge, widening the jungle lead for now. But in return, Jerry K manages to pick up the Drake with his bot lane priority, and I hope he helps them shove in a wave so they can like get a recall off and use that gold they made off the play. But I'm not expecting it.
Yeah, definitely not either. I think I would have liked to see Cyber potentially freeze the lane. He definitely had the wave for it. I would have liked to see him freeze it, maybe call the jungle up there again with the TP Cyber has available. And then once you kill the Zinzao again, then I think you push it in. Once you just get that base off, once you get that gold into his inventory, once you just spend that up, it ends up opting in for that early Bramble Vest, which is something we see a lot of top laners do, especially into these matchups that do have some healing, ends up cutting that down by that
Oh,
40%, and
look at
there's the
the
hook.
play right there. Look, this is exactly what I meant. Prophet didn't get to reset, so his stats are rather like weak compared to the Xayahs that already has the Noon Quiver, and he's chunked by half, and he's stuck in a really awkward lane state where he is not really crashing the wave, so he doesn't really get a recall, but also is not like able to push the wave out. And look at Phobos
Uh-huh.
losing the trade big time. Is this enough? Phobos living on 1 HP there, but he's not able to contest his wave. He tries to go for it, heals up a bit with his W, but I think he has to respect this big time. And if he doesn't, Cybercurse is just going to go for the dive. He has the ultimate available. And I mean, look at it. It's starting Hail Blades procced. Phobos is like playing on the edge there, but stalls out the play long enough so the minion wave disappears. And from there on out, it's not possible for Cyberquirks to look for a play anymore. But Phobos, I can fully understand Phobos' gameplay because that's quite literally also what I do. But I think he's not aware how much he's playing on the edge right now.
Definitely
He's
not.
taking a lot of risk with just staying in lane there.
Although does opt in to stay around, and I feel like this is where you need to call the jungle over. You have that Taric ultimate, you have such great diving capabilities. Yes, Jerry is up in this top lane, but if you can quickly burst down Phobos, even if he has that ultimate available, it might just be enough. And so far, we have seen Cyber win out on basically all these trades, and it's gonna be Jerry up towards the top side up first.
Yeah, and now the gank is coming in. The ultimate from Tariq is used, and the flash forward from the Vi is going to be dealing so much damage to Phobos. It's the lethality Vi, and that's 2 kills over 2 Greasy Goblins. Absolutely huge counter gank, and this is exactly what you want to have when going for a really aggressive Vi build and a top laner that has literal immortality for an ult.
It's this absolute disaster coming in for Quantify and Fukuro. I don't want to already say that the game is over, but we have seen this before. We have seen what happens when the Goblins pick themselves up and early pick themselves up a couple of early kills in the game, and then it just tends to be a snowball rolling down the hill that just keeps on gathering speed, keeps on gathering size, and almost a hook landing on the door there, but ends up going a little bit wide. And even with Snacks being in base, I doubt the hook would have done much, but it is one of the first hooks that we have seen Hacks miss, so definitely not something I was expecting to see after seeing that Nautilus gameplay, but nonetheless, we now know that he's human. We now know that he does have his weak moments, and so does so far Phobos, as it's gonna be the jungle with the early eclipse at 10 minutes.
Yes. Also, one more thing I want to add up to everything you've been saying so far. We expected the most explosive game out of like both teams' draft because of the playmaking, and this is in fact the opposite. Are at 10 minutes and there's only 3 kills on the board, and all of them happen on the top side, and 2 of them happen in the game. But now we get some bots at attention. Flash forward from Jerry K. He that doesn't have that ult available though, so this is actually the disengaged play, and there's so much damage on the Milio. The ult coming in, trying to save him. Is it
Oh
enough?
my god.
The hook landing. God of Hacks, absolutely insane. But in the meantime, the players turned on Snacks. Jerry K picks up a kill, 2 kills for Quantify, and that's the third one. Hacks is not able to pick up a kill, and this is beautiful. The first time that they're playing for the bot side in this play, and it's working out brilliantly. Ash is in the game right now and is going to be able to snowball, starting to pick up a lot of gold already. And there's another Drake that Jerry K can stack up to his count.
And this is an Ash that we, like you said, already is ahead. I feel like this is might be the first time where Quantify's bot lane is the one that is winning. The first time where they are the
Oh,
dominant
the Vi coming
half.
in, the ult coming in as well. Ash is in trouble now. Perfect. Prophet is out of the play, and now Nerdori also going to catch some hands. 2 kills for the Vi. This Drake tempo just wasn't good ultimately, which is unfortunate because I wait a second. I'm lost in thought, not because the play was bad, because overall this play was great, and then the exit Drake kind of backfired a little bit. But I'm seeing the biggest cook of the entire series right now, and all my attention shifts to the leeching Lear on the top lane. Phobos, what are you cooking?
This is an Riftmaker AP Zinzao. On the other side of the map, we have a hook onto Jerry K. Jerry K ends up falling under his own tower. This bot lane tower not looking too healthy for the moment. You see Prophet trying to get some poke damage in, but so far it is just... And I want to send my apologies over to the bot lane of the side where Prophet and Nidori do stand at. It is, I as soon as I say they're doing well, as soon as I say that the bot lane of on their side is winning, they just end up both falling. I apologize
The
for
good
the
old
curse.
Castus curse.
Yeah, I truly didn't mean it. I'm hoping for them to take this game just so we see
Oh,
some
look, Jerry
fight
K is
back, but
getting
Jerry
in top lane
K...
right now. Phobos is going for the trade, and the Hell of Blades is helping him a lot there. But the Conqueror on the other side for Curse is also absolutely huge. And with his Q heals, he's able to fight this 1v2. But there's another member moving up, Flash being used, Teleport being invested from the side of Greasy Goblins, and Emperor's Divide trying to save them. But the Silas ultimate coming in, completely dunking on Jerry K. Another kill secured. 4 Greasy Goblins, and this time it's Ogama. picking up the first kill of his game with an absolutely disrespectful TP ult play.
Quantiy just cannot get winning lanes in whenever it looks good for them. Whenever there is sun shining through their windows, they firmly slam it shut. But this might be what they need. Phobos going for the 1-for-1 kill, but can he get it? But the Taric is too damn strong, and Cyber is a madman on this Taric top.
He's so tanky
He's a
because of the items he
demon.
have built, and he picks up Conqueror because he knows that short trades won't matter to him because he's very tanky and naturally an auto attack or two won't matter to him. But he wins the long trades because of the Conqueror, and it's so brutal.
Oh my god,
I'm
blasting wand in the inventory of Phobos?
Oh, and another play being looked on Kurtz. He has out of mana, so that is going to be his huge disadvantage. Is he able to lift this? No, he is not, but Jerry K is taking a lot of damage, and I don't think he'll get out of this one alive. There's a crystal arrow coming in. There is a lot of CC on bottom, but he has the Mercs, out of it. And there's now a 3-on-2, and the knockup coming in from Phobos. Is Boda able to get out of this one? Hax doesn't have the lantern available. He used it for him. He uses the blast cone though to get his teammate out alive, and Prophet with the Ghost is running forward but is not able to catch up. And that was expertly handled uh, by Greasy Goblins once again. And now Snax has to ult. Phobos is in trouble, but actually gets out just fine because it doesn't get rooted from the Blade Caller. Lucky him. Can we talk about two things for a second? I like Phobos cooking. And Hail of Blades, Apex and Zahu is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen, like in a show match or an official anything, really. And yet I don't think it's bad. I think he has a good potential to become a side lane threat over this interesting and special build.
Definitely special. So, just to those who don't know, and just to, I think, shed a little bit of light on why he's doing this, all of his skills do have some AP scaling in them, which is why, except the Q, of course, but outside of that, even his passive does have mostly AP scaling, which is why this might work somewhat into the comp of Greasy Goblins, and we have a fight here in the mid lane.
That's such a weird fight, and that's 2 kills already. Prophet cashing in on the second one, but ultimately he has to be careful, and that's another kill for the Vi, and it's looking like more. She's out for blood, snapping everyone, and there's so many kills being traded, but Jerry K is the next one to fall. Donkey is the only one alive, and Phobos is on the side lane. But look at the top lane and jungle duo completely rolling over the team fights.
I was trying to talk about the mid jungle duo earlier. It is the top jungle duo that is absolutely popping off, and so do the disconnects. Jerry K disconnected earlier. This time it is Snacks, who's found himself in a little bit of a connection issue. Drake is gonna be up here as well, should be picked up by D Jungle, and Ocean Soul is gonna be in the game here. And with that being said, it's probably not Ocean Soul now that the Ocean Soul was
Ye-
second Drake. I think it's
Yeah,
a
it is
spectator
a
bug.
hex tech.
Yeah, I think it's a spectator bug where it
For some
shows.
reason, Hextech sometimes shows as previous Drakes. Uh, that being said, I think Hextech is great. If well, if Quantiy is able to pick that up, we see another disconnect this time from Jerry K.
I'm just being bamboozled by Riot once again.
I think you mentioned a good win con though. The snacks disconnect win con is still out there. And we have to respect that there is already a 4K gold lead on the map, and I think most of that is on the Vi. And yeah, to be quite frank, I think there's no way that Quantiy is going to come back unless they secure another Drake at least.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And my point of Snacks win con only stands if Jerry can keep himself in the game. But if he can't do it and it's a 4v4, I'm gonna have to side over to the Goblins here. And with Jerry still not being in the game, I'm assuming it's because he's dead. They wanted to just move on with it. Snacks did find himself back into the realm of his internet, found himself back into the realm of Riot Games. Again, a little bit of a spectator bug. It does tend to freeze up the game for a little bit after you pause it. So don't worry, guys. It's not on your ends. It was just Riot being doing Riot things, and it is the jungle who is on the Hextech Drake, and a Hextech Soul I feel like would be so detrimental against the comp of against the comp that they have on the other side. With you having a Taric, with you having a Zaya, just having that slowdown against the Quantiy lineup would be, I feel like, disastrous. If they can pick it up, not to even mention the fact that it's a lot of ability haste per Drake. 4 Drakes would be, I think it's roughly into the 30s or the 40s when it comes to ability haste, which you get completely free.
Yeah.
And that on a Taric, that on a Zaya, on Hax's hook cooldown sounds so dangerous to play
On specifically Hax's hook cooldown, that's especially dangerous.
against.
We do see the Herald being up, and we do see Greasy Goblins pathing for it. It's the second Herald. It's not going to be too detrimental to Quantify if they lose it. However, it's still a tool that
Oh,
they can use to break open, or that Greasy Goblins can use to break open the map a bit. And there, just as a random pick against Phobos on the side lane, we didn't see. But I mean, at this point, so far the cook has not paid off.
yeah, definitely not. 1-4 on the Zinza, and it's basically just Ogama saying, yeah, you can build AP items, so can I, but my champions uses them a hell lot better than yours does, so ends up getting that solo bolo down to the bot lane, which means it is a free herald for the side of the Goblins, and I do expect that to go in the mid lane. Another
Oh,
1v1 down
look at
here.
Jerry Cave looking for Barack Ogama. I think Ogama can turn that fight, but it's not an easy one for sure.
Yeah, I feel like with the chains and still having those up, I feel like he could have turned around there, potentially got the turnaround, but potentially killed Jerry K. But again, doesn't want to
He's not
risk it.
taking the coin flip, and I respect that.
Yeah, doesn't want to risk it. There's no need to. He's Vice 10 on 1. His team is 7,000, well, almost 7,000 gold ahead. There is no need to 50-50 that. If he doesn't get the kill, it is what it is. He's not the one who needs to sort of push this lead. He's not the one who has the 10 kills, the 2 items on his team ever first finished up as well for Ogama gives him that extra bit of CC, extra bit of sustain. And with this Baron now being on the map, any picks you get, any sort of control you can find on the map just has so much more value than it did like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, for sure. And I think not only the pick potential is something that we need to look out for, even just brute forcing, move your lead, a fight at Baron is a potential that we need to look at. Like right now, it might not be possible. But look at like 1 or 2 item spikes more, and sneaking the Baron is also an option, and no one is expecting it because the Taric heal is literally making it so easy for this Baron sneak. It's not even close.
It's really not close to you. This is where the strength of things like Taric top lies. I don't know if you were around back then for Kuro, but do you remember ages ago when
The Yi Taric.
people, yeah, the Yi funnel strat, where people used to do this with the Taric mid and you funnel it into the Yi, and it would allow you to do things like this, where you could essentially just two-man Baron. Taric would just sit there, bin chilling, spamming Q, keeping your health max, while you would just smack on the Baron, and that's exactly what they ended up doing on the side of the Goblins without the Yi, without any funneling. And I'm not gonna lie, Fakuro, I hate to call it this early, but I realistically don't see a way anyone on the side of on the side of the side where the Zinda is has an answer into this Taric,
Yeah.
and it's just so rough.
I mean, just in general, there's so many things that have gone wrong in the last couple of minutes, and the Baron on top of that is just a cherry on the top. It's going to widen the gold gap, and we're already at 7,000. And look at the cancel from Barack Obama. This is such a good play from him, and I think he's going to find Phobos rather easily, and it's enough damage, and he takes him down. And this is exactly what I mean. These plays keep snowballing to the point where they spiral out of control, and Cyberkirks is going to be caught out, gets the crystal arrow in his face, but there's the TP coming in, his ult is being used. He is fine, and there's Barack Obama now looking for the play and finds another. That's his second kill. He's looking for the unofficial pentakill, maybe looking for more. He is on the flank, and he finds another chain connecting. That's his third kill, unofficial triple kill secured, but Jungle Buddha stops the streak, and that is exactly what I was talking about. These plays keep snowballing, and especially with Baron, that means they lose so much on the map. There's the Drake up, there is the turret in the mid lane that the Azir probably won't be able to defend against a fully stacked wave and multiple members of Greasy Goblins. And I think this is like the worst thing that beautiful shuffle from Ogama to Snacks. Oh my god.
It's
It's exactly what I mean. I can't even finish my train of thought because there is so little respect to these plays that Quantiy is showing. That's like the only thing that they need to work on. But now they looked for the turn. Hax is definitely going to fall, but there is the turn now. Ogama is looking for the play. Vi is also coming in. There is just Kirk's on the backline hammering at that Milio, and he's going to fall. And that's 3 kills over. Yes, you got the fresh, but you're going to lose the game of that play. There is still a Xinzao on the side lane, and I think there is just no way for Azir to single-handedly defend all of this. He's just going to get off again. Barak going for it, and it's Jover. It's Jover for today. We definitely see two teams with potential squaring off. One of them, at least to me, looks like one of the top teams we have for the split.
It is another 3-0 show match for us today, and there was a lot of cooking done today. I feel like maybe the cooking shouldn't have been done by Phobos, maybe it shouldn't have been him, but Cyber definitely cooking up that cinch, cooking up that Tarek, and just showing what he can do, showing the absolute creativity that this mad lad has to offer. And it is gonna be a game finished with a full Sapphire Crystal and tier of Goddess Azir, which I didn't even notice until the end of that game. So, Fukuro, who would you give your series MVP and the MVP of this last game over to?
I mean, let's start with this game. I think it is very reasonable to give it to Buddha, but I'm actually going to give it to Kirks. I think Kirks had so many plays where he was the one to initiate a fight, maybe even going 1v2, dragging a lot of attention to him, and then the follow up on that being his team capitalizing off these plays. And it would be like okay and just normal, average top lane gaming moment if he didn't have only one death in this entire game with 15 kill participation. So to me, he is the MVP for this game.
All right, what about the series then? Who would you give the series MVP to?
I think Barack Obama. I think his game two was like his performance in game two specifically was the reason they won, and he has not played bad the other two games either. Just like not the most notable like MVP worthy performance for the separate games, but he has not had a single like bad moment in any of the games, I think.
Honestly, I feel like I agree with you. I feel like that's kind of the people I would give the MVPs to as well. I feel like it was a very solid game, or very solid 3 games from overall from the squad of the Goblins. And I don't know. I feel like to me, Fukuro at least, this is one of the most fun show matches I think we've had so far. We
I
saw some
agree.
Singe top, we saw Zinzao top, we saw AP Zinzao top, not even AD. This was Riftmaker Zinzao. We saw some Taric top, we saw everything under the sun. I would have not be
I'm
surprised to see a Teemo ADC on top of all that or something.
I'm so happy we finally got to see some cook, and both teams have been cooking good this show match. But I also can't wait to see both these teams play like regular season, regular splits in split five, because I think with both teams we have like really strong teams, and I think especially with Greasy Goblins we have maybe even a title contender. It's really early to say this, so I'm not gonna like throw it in lightly. I'm gonna be confident and say for now, from what I've seen in show matches, this could very well be between Greasy Goblins and like one of the either or the Gucci teams, either of really, uh, later on in the season. But
Yeah.
that's a really early prediction from me, and I don't want to be quoted on that in the future.
And remember, guys, make sure to clip that, make sure to save that in your VODs, make sure to save that in every folder you have, just so we can yell at Fukuro later on into the season when all of this doesn't happen.
Don't turn me into a copy pasta, please.
Welcome to the new meme of SLE, but that is gonna be all the games we have for today. And again, another 3-0 sweep, another 3-0 in the bag for today. And again, thank you, Fukuro, very much for joining me. Thank you to Jackson for being the producer, being the man behind the scenes who made all this happen. And thank you to everybody who was here watching as well. Hopefully next time around, next show match, we won't get a 3-0. Maybe one of these days we'll actually get some competitive gaming out here, but definitely keep your eyes on the Singe. Definitely keep your eyes on the Taric when the split five begins, because you never know what the Goblins be doing in the kitchen. I wish you all a good night, and I will see you later.